Jimmy, I'm going to send you some videos on my reloading process. And if you don't like them, then you can stick them in your ass.
Now, Jimmy, the first thing I do is I go out into the field and I look for brass, and I usually find them in little piles, just like this. Then, Jimmy, what I do is I separate everything out into the wants and the wants nots. Now, Jimmy, the wants nots in the damaged cases I put in scrap bags just like this. Then, Jimmy, I do me a bit of tumbling. Then, Jimmy, I will separate the tumbling media from the just tumbled cartridges. Then, Jimmy, I take air that has been compressed and I blow the fine particles of the tumbling media away from the just tumbled cases. Or, Jimmy, if you prefer, you could use a fine chamois and clean the cases individually, something like this. Okay, Jimmy, once you have cleaned them off with a fine chamois, you can inspect each case individually so you can find ones like this. Or what you can do is just take your chances at the reloading press, as I do. Now, Jimmy, once I have inspected the cases, if I choose to do so, I will bag the clean cases up, something like this. Now, Jimmy, this is the case lubricant that I use, made by RCBS. It's nice stuff. Alright now, Jimmy, what you gotta do is you gotta smear this all over the pad. You gotta get your hands in there and get them all gooey, and don't you fret none, 'cause it doesn't burn. Alright, Jimmy, then you take the cases and you place them on the pad such as this, and you move them around until they get all gooey. You don't want to get them too gooey or they'll be a little bit gooey. Now, Jimmy, you take the fresh cases and you pour them in the top just like this. Then you can shake this around a little bit and they'll all fall down in the proper hole. Sometimes they don't, you gotta shake them a little bit harder, but that's okay. Okay, Jimmy, what I like to do before I get started is I like to make sure that everything is cleaned and prepped properly. Now, Jimmy, once you have cleaned your press and it's reassembled, then you must make sure that the primer injection tool freely moves up and down all the way. Now, Jimmy, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to do a little lubricating on your machine to make sure that it's well lubricated. Then what you want to do is to take a little lubrication and put a little lubrication around here too. That way it'll be well lubricated and won't wear out when you need it to be wore out. Now, Jimmy, after you get your primer put in, what you gotta do is you gotta shake that little tray around like this till all of those little bitty primers are face up. They'll cooperate, but you gotta keep messing with them. Then, Jimmy, you take and you put the lid on very carefully so none of the primers jump out and fall on the floor. Make sure the lid is locked down securely. Just like that. Then, Jimmy, you gotta hold something over the opening of the primer so none of the primers fall out onto the ground. Then you can start that in there and get that started in there, and then tap your primer, okay, and the primers will fall to where they're supposed to. Alright, Jimmy, then what you can do is you can take and you put some powder in there, and don't want to overfill it or underfill it, but get the powder put in so you can get ready. Jimmy, before I start the actual reloading process, I like to get some powder out of there about 5 to 10 times, and that way it'll get kind of settled in. Sometimes I find that if you just start right on out there and start to reload, you'll get a little overweight for some reason. Now, Jimmy, the first thing I do when I start my reloading process is I watch for the cases. If you see a case that's upside down, such as that one right there, you must reach in there and get it flipped over. So watch for that. Jimmy, the next thing I watch for is that primer window, and I watch for the primer to fall in the trough. All right, Jimmy, then I look to make sure that there's powder in the case, just like that one right there. Now, if you don't see powder in the case, you probably shouldn't finish building that bullet. Okay, Jimmy, what I like to do is I like to run me about 4 or 5 cases through and weigh the powder in those before I even begin putting a bullet on it, because I want to make sure that the powder measuring is almost equal or likewise. All right now, Jimmy, once everything is functioning like it should be, you should be able to knock out, say, 10 to 20,000 rounds in about 5 minutes. That's how I do it. That's how I've been doing it. And that's how it's done. All right, Jimmy, once you have done with your bullets, I like to take me a moist towel and I'll wrap them up gently and I'll move them around in that moist towel like this right here. And then what you can do is you can dump those out, maybe dry them off a little bit like that, Jimmy. Then they'll be clean of any debris. Then, Jimmy, I double check for primers to make sure they're in properly and maybe not upside down or crooked, because sometimes that happens. Now, Jimmy, there's several ways to store your freshly made ammunition. You can store it in a big box container all loose, such as this right here. You can put them in a nice, neat little container like this right here. Or you can just label a sack and throw them right in there like that. It all depends on you. Okay, Jimmy, in conclusion, what I'd like to say is that if your time is money, then you shouldn't be reloading, because reloading is a hobby.